Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. So today we're going to talk about the 5 books that changed my life. I mean, I guess a lot of books changed my life, but I narrowed it down to 5 that I think really impacted something major about my life. So before we get started though, I do need to say that I did not used to be a reader. So that is surprising to most people because I was an English teacher and then now I am a librarian. So you would think that I was always a reader, but until I was about 12 years old, I did not like reading. So the only time I would read before that is because my friends would read books. I wanted to read books. And there was also usually like a competition in the summers in elementary school, and I wanted to win the little trophy that you got. So I read the most books one summer just so I could get the trophy, but I did not like reading the books. So the first book that changed my life was the book that actually got me interested into reading. And I always tell students this, that there will be a book out there for you and that you just have to find the right one. For me, it was Harry Potter. So Harry Potter truly changed my life, the whole series, because I hated reading until this point. So what happened was I was 12 years old. I was in 7th grade, or maybe I think it was the summer between 6th and 7th grade. My mom had heard a lot about this book. I remember she'd heard Rosie O'Donnell talking about it on her show. So she went out and bought me the copy because she wanted to make me read it. And I just did not even want to start it. So I remember she made me read it with her. She was like, "Oh, here, now I'll read it to you." And I was like, "Okay, fine, I'll listen." So she would read it to me and I was like, "Okay, this isn't terrible, I guess." And at the beginning, it was kind of confusing because there were a lot of names and I was like, Dumbledore and McGonagall, like what kind of names, what is this? And I kind of was like, whatever. And then once Harry got to Hogwarts, I was like, oh, okay, this is pretty good. And I got done with book 1. I was like, well, I have to go buy book 2. So I remember we went and bought book 2. And then we bought book 3, which was the best. I loved it. And then after that, I had to wait for each book to come out, however many years in between each one. So, but I did get to read the first 3 back to back. So Harry Potter, without it, I don't know that I would love reading. Maybe I would have discovered something else, but who knows? Maybe not. Okay, so the next book that changed my life was more of a short novel, I would say, and sort of a collection of short stories as well. And that was, so I finished reading Harry Potter and I realized, hey, maybe I like just Harry Potter. Maybe I still hate reading. Maybe I only liked that story. So I decided to try something else when I finished Harry Potter to see, well, like the first 3 books anyway. I was like 12 years old. And I was like, okay, let me see if I can find something else that I like. So the very next thing I read was The Hound of the Baskervilles. And it was so good. And I was like, okay, I guess I actually enjoy reading because I found something else that I like. It wasn't just Harry Potter. That wasn't a fluke or anything. I actually like reading. So I loved Hound of the Baskervilles and I read all 4 of the actual novels, and Valley of Fear was my favorite, which was the last one. You should totally read it if you haven't. I forgot to mention that in my other video. That would have been a good one to mention for lesser known books I love. Valley of Fear is wonderful. And then I also read a lot of the short stories. So I bought like the whole set here, as you can see, all of Sherlock Holmes, and it was awesome. And so I realized after reading these that I loved reading in general. So that changed my life as well, because then I decided to continue to be a lifelong reader. Okay, the next book that changed my life kind of helped lead me into the English teaching profession. And so we're going to jump ahead to 9th grade now. I was in 9th grade and we were assigned to read a lot of classic literature starting in 9th grade. And you would think that, young adults like 9th graders reading classics, I wouldn't really enjoy it. But I remember I didn't think that they were that bad. So I guess that's what made me realize, hey, I think I actually like classics. And I liked a lot of classics. I loved To Kill a Mockingbird. I loved Tale of Two Cities. I loved Frankenstein. It's still one of my favorites. But those weren't the first ones. The first one that I loved was Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. Now, who has a kid, a 9th grader, read a 550-page book that they're actually interested in it? But it was like an honors English class, and I remember we had to read it as part of class, so therefore we would discuss it each day as well after we'd read some for homework, and I think we read some in class as well. And so I actually found that, discussing it helped me to understand it a little bit more. Because we had some summer reading too, but I didn't quite understand a lot of the classics like Silas Marner and stuff that we had to read on our own because we weren't really discussing it. But we discussed this one in class, and I remember my favorite part was the lawyer in the book who would come home every day and he would wash his hands because he was like washing off all the bad deeds that I just like spit everywhere. He was washing off all the bad deeds that he had done that day. And so now, like every day when I come home from school, not that I've done bad deeds at school, but it's like I'm kind of kind of washing off the school day, and now I'm ready to go to like my home life, like a different, mode, like home mode and work mode. So I always think, like literally every day I think of this book that I am teaching, because I come home and wash my hands off, and therefore I've washed off the day, just like the lawyer in this book. So I loved Great Expectations, and it's definitely not my favorite classic, and I've never read it again, but because of the fact that it allowed me to realize that I liked other things besides like young adult books like Harry Potter, so I enjoyed most of the books I was assigned for school. So that's the book that kind of led me to eventually probably become an English teacher. But the next book just kind of furthered my love of reading, and it's my favorite author, so I'm going to have to show you her book for sure. And I also met my best friend in college, because we met like the third day of college, and we were talking about how we both loved these books, and I'd never met anybody else who liked them. So at the end of 9th grade, I started reading Interview with the Vampire. And this was definitely not really too much of a 9th grade book. It's not young adult. I kind of skipped over young adult. Like I read kids books and then I went straight to adult, but there wasn't much young adult back then. Like there was Harry Potter. Twilight wasn't out yet. Hunger Games wasn't out yet. All the books in our library, young adult books, were not out yet. So it was a very new genre, and I just pretty much skipped over it. So I read an Interview with the Vampire, and I remember I got to about page 50. And remember, I'm in 9th grade, and there was a part where Lestat, drains the blood out of this rat. And I was like, this is so gross. Like, why am I reading this? This is so weird. And I thought, but I'm going to power through. I'm going to keep reading. And it was so slow moving at the beginning too. So I powered through, and oh my gosh, I can't imagine my life if I had given up at 50 pages in, because this book, I'm saying it's changed my life just because it is my favorite. She is my favorite author, and I have read almost every single book that she has ever written. There's only a few like that she's written under other names, and a couple other ones like Cry to Heaven I've not read, and Violin I've not read. I think those are her only two that were written under her name, not a pseudonym, that I have not read. This book actually I had signed. I mean, it's a terrible old copy, as you can see by the cracked spine, which I'll talk about that in another video. I don't like cracking spines. But look. Yep, it even says for Megan. It's personalized by Anne Rice. I got to meet Anne Rice. I got to ask her a question, and I'm going to do a whole video on my favorite authors that I have met and what questions that I got to ask them and what I got to talk to them about. So anyway, Interview with the Vampire, wonderful. Love the whole series. Like I said, I even met my best friend in college because we talked about these books when we first met, and I think this is kind of what started our friendship. So a huge part of my life, and I reread Anne Rice books all the time. I just recently reread the Witching Hour series, and now I'm about to reread the newest 3 of the Lestat books that have come out more recently, when she kind of went back to writing the Vampire Chronicles again. But Vampire Chronicles, I highly recommend. I love them. And for the final book that changed my life, so this one I did not read until I was a teacher. Or no, graduate school. No, I read this one in graduate school in about 2010, I believe. So about 10 years ago. And then I taught it in 10th grade English for 6 years. I taught 10th grade English for 7 years, but I think I only did this book for 6 of them. But the kids usually really enjoyed it. It was one of their favorite novels that we read, and it is The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, I think is how you say his name. Anyway, so this book was originally written in Portuguese, and it's been translated into tons of different languages, but I love this English translation. I think it's really, really fascinating. So if you don't know anything about The Alchemist, it's very short. There are not very many words per page. There you go. See, you can see all my notes in there too, all the things I've underlined. So this would be really fast. My husband actually read it in one day sitting at the beach. So of course I made him read it too. But this book is truly life-changing. If you look it up, people like Oprah and just a lot of like famous stars have said that if they read this book, it did change their lives as well. So it's sort of a fable in some ways, because there are talking, like, not really talking animals, but like parts of nature that sort of talk. And it's just got characteristics of a fable. Like the people could be anyone. It's very universal. The main character has a name, but he's pretty much just called the boy forever. The alchemist character doesn't have a name. He's just the alchemist. So the characters don't really have names because they could be anybody. And then it's also kind of realistic, not realistic fiction. What's it called? Magical realism. There we go. I can never remember that. It's magical realism, which I usually hate, but I like it in this case. Like, it's set in the real world. It's very realistic, except for the fact that there are some things in this that can't happen. So, like I said, he talks to like nature sometimes at the end a little bit. And there's a person that has sort of a prophetic dream, some things like that. But for the most part, it is pretty realistic. The whole point of this book, though, is to teach you a lesson, also kind of like a fable, which is to follow your personal legend. So a personal legend in this book is like the thing that you were born to do. So you were born with a personal legend, and you have to figure out what it is, and then you should go and achieve it. And basically he's saying the heart and the soul can only be content when you actually achieve your personal legend. So that could be anything from the career that you have to like a specific thing that you do. Like this boy, he dreams about a treasure in Egypt. So he lives in Africa, and he dreams, or not in Africa, he lives in, oh my gosh, how did I forget? Spain. Yeah, an area of Spain called it like Andalusia. And he dreams that he travels to Egypt and finds a treasure at the pyramids. And he realizes that this is his personal legend, is to journey to the pyramids and find this treasure. So he, of course, learns lessons along the way, and the journey's pretty much more important than the destination in this case. I won't tell you about whether he finds this treasure at the end or not, or what happens, but he realizes that that is his personal legend. It just made me really want to do the things that I wanted to do in my life. And he talks about there are reasons why people don't follow their personal legends and actually see them through. And you have to sort of overcome these main reasons why. There's like 4 main reasons that people don't follow their personal legend. The first reason that we don't achieve our personal legends is because we are told from childhood onward that everything we do is impossible. And you're just told, like if I wanted to be an Egyptologist, which I did, it was like, hey, that's impossible. You can't be an Egyptologist. You don't travel. Like, you wouldn't want to go to Egypt. You'd have to go to only certain colleges offer that. You can't get into those colleges. It's just like you're just told you can't do it. The second one is love, because we would have to hurt those around us to pursue our dreams. The third one is fear of defeats that we will meet along the way. And then the fourth one, I believe, is the one I was telling you, the fear of realizing the dream for which we have fought all of our lives. The mere possibility of getting what we want fills our soul with guilt, because we see all the people around us that haven't done it, and so we would feel guilty if we did. So it's kind of about achieving your personal legend despite any obstacles that pop up in your way, and it's just so motivational. This is not my kind of book normally ever, but the way it's told, he talks a lot about like this universal language that everyone speaks. It's kind of like this language of love, and that everybody understands it, and how everybody can kind of communicate with the universe and tap into it. And you have to be able to tap into it to get to your personal legend. And love is sort of the key to all of it. It's so good. So you need to go read it. And I'm sorry for the dinging. I forgot to mute my computer, and apparently I'm getting a lot of emails. So anyway, that's what happens when we go back to school, I guess. So those are 5 books that definitely changed my life. Anyway, so thank you guys for watching, and you should definitely check out some of these books. If you've not, read The Alchemist. It's so good. All right, talk to you guys later. Bye.